Gun control in 2022. Hey, what does it look like? The debate in the light of recent shootings. Well, we're going to talk about gun control in 2022. We're going to talk about that right here on today's Charlie Crimebuster. Well, what some people, they're calling it the fastest minutes in podcasting. Well, hello and welcome to this edition of Charlie Crimebuster. We welcome our listeners from the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world. Yep, never thought when we started this podcast we'd be hearing from people from different countries, all listening to a podcast about true crime here in America from the perspective of a cop. Hey, we do appreciate your participation from wherever you are, and we thank you. We're so thankful for the thousands of downloads that are occurring. Hey, if you'd like to become a part of the Charlie Crimebuster family, well, please go to peacemakernetwork.com. That's peacemakernetwork.com. Click on the donate button. There you can help us help others for as little as $3 a month. You can become a badge supporter. You can help those who are our heroes out there fighting crime. That being said, let's get into our focus today. Well, the debate, it continues on and on and on. That is the gun control debate. Some may call it the gun rights debate, but those supporters say guns really do not have rights. They prefer the term Second Amendment virtues. And while that debate is ever present, well, it's taken on new passion. That's new passion in light of recent mass shootings. In this past week, we've witnessed multiple shootings. Two major mass shootings, one in a supermarket in Buffalo. That's where an 18-year-old white man was accused of opening fire back in May at a supermarket in a predominantly black community. There he killed 10 people. He injured 3 others. He was a self-acclaimed white supremacist. And then there was that tragic shooting in Texas, that elementary school shooting, where another 18-year-old, he shot 19 students, 2 teachers, back on May the 24th, 2022. Earlier that day, this man had shot his grandmother, severely wounding her in the forehead. And then, my friend, just this past weekend, a weekend passed from the release of this podcast this weekend. We observed that from Friday to Sunday. It has been called the deadliest week of mass shootings. It occurred in Philadelphia, Chattanooga, Tennessee, Saginaw, Michigan, Omaha, Nebraska, and other towns and cities. And according to data that was compiled by the Gun Violence Archives, get this, at least 82, that's 82 people in a weekend from Friday to Sunday, were killed or wounded in gunfire. So as you can imagine, especially in light of these past weeks, well, the gun control debate, it's gathered new fuel. And there are lots of voices talking at the same time, and they're very loud, and sometimes it's difficult to find clarity in the debate itself. And there are masses of people on all sides of the debate. So in order to understand that debate, well, we got to identify the participants of the debate. You see, on the far left, you have proponents who want to ban guns, period. There's actually a very popular Netflix series called We Own This City. That series puts spotlight on the Baltimore Police Department and corruption within the department. It is set around the time of the riots that occurred after Freddie Gray died in police custody in a police van. Now, the producers of that series, they're not shy about speaking out about guns. In fact, in listening to his podcast, the podcast about the show, We Own the City, well, you can even hear him saying, get this, he advocates taking guns all the way not only from citizens, but from the police themselves, like in certain other countries, where only a few police would be allowed to carry weapons. Then you have those on the far right, like the group called No Compromise. They want no laws whatsoever. They believe that the Constitution gives them those rights. They quote The government shall not infringe on the right to bear arms. Emphasis on infringe. Can't even get around the fringe of it. Can't touch it. Next, you have people at various degrees in the middle of the spectrum. Those who do want people to be able to bear arms, but with certain limitations. These limitations could include red flag laws, where the debate is centering on in 2022. Add to this a lot of passion on both sides of the spectrum, and there you have it. Yep, you have it. The 2022 gun control debate. Now in a moment, I'm going to share with you some misguided thinking about that debate. We're going to talk about some of the myths of gun control and how it is now time for us to get serious about it. We're going to talk about that. But now, we always take time at the beginning of our program to bring you what we call our Courageous Citizen of the Week story. This one involves several courageous people. You see, on June the 9th, this happened in Smithsburg, Maryland. There was an active shooter. That's right, an active shooter. He was at the Columbia Machine Company that was located on Bickel Road there in Maryland. It was about 2:30 p.m. It was a manufacturing facility. It's actually located in a rural part of the state, about 75 miles from the Washington, D.C. area. Now, the Washington County Sheriff's Office, they said the deputies did respond to a report of an active shooter. They went on to talk about this gunman who shot and killed 3 people and wounded another. Then the male suspect fled the scene by car. That was before the deputies arrived. They got out the word that this guy was on the run. And then Maryland State Police, they encountered him a short time later at a roundabout on Maryland Route 66. This was about 5 miles from the shooting. Well, the gunman, after he was stopped, he immediately started firing at police. Troopers returned fire, and the suspect was struck, get this, along with one of the 3 troopers that were involved in that. Now, charges are pending against the shooter. So our heroes this week, they're these 3 troopers. 3 troopers, state troopers, who did not wait. They did not hesitate. Did you get that? They did not wait. They did not hesitate. They engaged this man who was using deadly force. And even though one of their own was shot in gunfire, these 3 state troopers, courageous state troopers, they are indeed Charlie Crimebuster's Courageous Heroes of the Week. Now, just a quick sidebar. If you want to do more than admire these brave heroes, you can do something to support them. You can support our program that supports these types of heroes. Peacemaker.com. Click on the donate button. Become a badge supporter. Your support will help us help law enforcement, first responders, and the military. That's peacemakernetwork.com. Now back to our main focus, the gun control debate of 2022. Let me first of all share with you today some myths about gun control. It seems like after every shooting, politicians and activists, they rush to the cameras of their keyboards to tell people exactly what should be done to stop mass shootings in the future. Gun control proponents, well, they demand more gun control. Gun rights, Second Amendment virtue supporters, they dig in their heels, explain why new laws won't stop evil people from doing evil things, especially when current laws aren't even adequately being enforced. Now, some of their talking points, well, they're littered with myths and factual inaccuracies. One of the myths is what I call an oldie but goodie, and it is that gun show loopholes allow anyone, even criminals, to get guns. My friend, that's a myth. It does not exist. There's no loophole in federal law that exempts gun show transactions from any other law normally applied to gun sales. No, not one. My friend, if you purchase a gun from a licensed dealer, regardless of the transaction, at a gun store, a gun show, even in a gun dealer's trunk, well, that dealer, he must show and confirm that you are legally allowed to purchase that gun. They must run a background check on the NICS database or they must confirm that you have passed already a background check by examining your state-issued concealed carry permit or maybe your government-issued purchase permit. There are no exceptions to that federal requirement. And my friend, you simply can't cross state lines and make a purchase without checking on your background in your home state. Now you can purchase weapons from individuals all over this country without going through a licensed dealer. So that's a myth that there's a so-called gun show loophole. It doesn't exist. There's another myth, and that is some people are saying that there's nobody out there that's demanding everybody go and get your guns. Nobody's demanding gun confiscation. Well, I guess we've all seen how this one plays out. I mentioned to you already about the show that we own this city that they want even to take guns from police officers. You see, in the wake of a shooting, a politician would demand common sense gun regulations. Gun rights supporters then respond something along the lines, they just want to take our guns. And then usually people on the other side, they mock this and say, oh, you stupid hick, nobody wants to take your guns. But that's not true. There's a number of progressive people in this country who do want to take our guns. TPM's Josh Marshall, he readily admitted that progressive they care a whole lot more about gun confiscation than they do about nibbling around the edges of existing gun laws. In other words, yes, he went on to say, we really do want to take your guns. Then he wrote, well, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them. And he's not the only one. In the Washington Post, there was an editorial who scolded Republicans for refusing to endorse a nationwide, get this, a nationwide gun confiscation program, similar to the one that was instituted in Australia in the mid-1990s. A third myth is that certain guns should be banned because you do not need them to hunt. You will often hear uninformed people argue that the AR-15 should be banned because you do not need a semi-automatic rifle to go hunting. There are people who use the argument incorrectly, that people do not need that to go hunting. You see, people today, my friend, who really believe in the Second Amendment, they do not believe that our forefathers returned with their weapons from duck hunting. They know they returned with their weapons from liberating a nation. And for that reason, they wrote that the government should not infringe on the right of an individual to bear arms. There's another myth, too. That is the myth that Second Amendment supporters, that they believe that the government, those who believe that the government cannot infringe on gun owners, they believe that these people are all white supremacists. That's simply not true. In 2019, there were 2.4 million Americans who became gun owners. That figure swelled up to 3.8 in 2020. And reports are now that there are 5 million more Americans who became gun owners during the pandemic. Now, sadly, while racism does exist in this country, it is simply unfair and untrue to say that the millions of gun owners in this country are racist. Thankfully, only a very few, a minority of gun owners, very few, are actual racists. Most people who own guns are law-abiding, true Americans who believe in the fairness to all and the rights of all to bear arms under the Constitution. The truth of the matter is that the most strong gun laws, well, they were actually passed as a result of racist people. That was back in the 60s, which was against the Black Panther bearing arms, and there came a whole host of gun laws. You see, there were far more racist people on the side of gun control back then. So to say that people who believe their rights to own and bear arms are racist, it's a myth. It's simply wrong. And then there's a final myth I want to mention on today's program, and that's the myth that if you believe one way or the other, well, you're a bad person. Frankly, my friend, there are good and bad people on both sides of this issue. There are good people who advocate gun control, and there are good people who believe in the Second Amendment, that the Constitution gives them the right to bear arms. In the same token, There are very bad people, too, on each side. You see, guns themselves do not make people good or bad. That comes from the heart, the values that one has in their life. There are people who use the argument incorrectly in many, many different ways. Now, there's also the myth that by just passing red flag laws, we can stop mass shootings. Now, while I am very much in support of watching out for signs of someone about to commit a mass shooting, passing such laws will not stop mass shootings. You should not have to pass a law for someone to see something and say something. In fact, there are laws already there that have stopped mass shootings. That's without red flag laws. A person was stopped in our county from shooting up a college campus. They were stopped and arrested because they made a threat. That was already a law. We did not need additional red flag laws to stop that individual. You see, red flag laws, they often mention the use of drugs, but they're not being enforced. You cannot own a weapon if you're a drug user or guilty of domestic violence already. We do not need additional laws. We just simply need to enforce the ones we have. And I believe we do need to punish severely those who would use a weapon in the commitment of a violent crime. Now, in a moment, we're going to hear about some more good people involved in the debate. But right now, it is time for what we call our crazy crook story. Well, this lady, you could say she was caught orange-handed. That's right, orange, O-R-A-N-G-E, handed. It appears that there was a woman that was busted for a home invasion. That was in Oklahoma, thanks in part, now get this, to quote-unquote, Cheeto dust. That's right, you heard me right. Cheeto dust that was found in her teeth. That's what authorities allege. Her name was Sharon Carr. She was arrested on a first-degree burglary charge after allegedly she committed the dangerous cheesy act at a home in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Cops there say they arrived at the home that night where a mom of 2 young kids called 911. Report that another lady had pried a screen off of her window, gotten inside her house. Well, this snack-loving sneak, she had already fled. But cops say they found, quote, a bag of Cheetos and a bottle of water on the floor near an open window. And a few seconds later, this lady Carr, she emerged from the shadows. The mom, she did ID her as the invader. And that bus was further cemented when they found, get this, incriminating orange snack food residue still stuck in her teeth. Cops, they think she dropped the bag while making her escape. And so the Tulsa police, they wrote on Facebook these words, a good reminder to you crooks out there, Cheeto dust can be pretty hard to get rid of. And this Cheeto-loving crook, well, that becomes our crazy crook story of the week. Now back to our main focus. In light of the recent mass shootings, we do hear from celebrities. And this one is a particular celebrity who actually comes from the actual home of the school shooting in Texas, Matthew McConaughey. He was from that very Texas town. He called for bipartisan action on mental health reform, stricter gun legislation, and consequences for people who violate gun laws. He did that as he appeared at the White House on this past Tuesday. Now, this Austin area resident, he was visibly choked up while sharing the stories of families that were affected by the mass shooting there at Robb Elementary, the one that left 19 fourth graders and 2 teachers dead, at least 17 others injured. He went on to say there is a sense that perhaps there's a visible path forward, a viable one. That's what he said at a press briefing there at the James Brady briefing room. That was right after he met with President Joe Biden. He went on to say responsible parties in this debate seem to be at least committed to sitting down and having a real conversation about a new, improved path forward, a path that can bring us closer together, make us safer as a country, a path, he says, Matthew, that can actually get something done this time. He went on to say we need responsible gun ownership. We need background checks. We need to raise the minimum age to purchase an AR-15 rifle to 21. We need a waiting period for those rifles. And he went on to say we need red flag laws and consequences to those who abuse them. Now in Texas, 18 is the legal age to buy a rifle. That shooter, well, he purchased 2 AR platform rifles within days of turning 18. Now I gotta admit, while it was very, very moving to hear this successful actor share his heart, it is yet to be seen what legislative results will really come to be. Then there are those who believe that we cannot legislate our way out of evil that exists to do harm. As I said a few podcasts ago, you really do not see young people full of purpose and good making this kind of damage. A fulfilled 18-year-old does not become a mass shooter. It is my opinion we should spend this excessive energy that we have right now in this debate in bringing back values of good living in our country and our schools. So just where do we see this debate going? I believe there will be a push to do the following. Number one, there will be those who want to ban rifles like the AR-15. That will not pass. I can just pretty well guarantee and assure you of that. And then there's going to be a push to push the age to obtaining one to 21. I believe that law has more of a chance. Here in Florida, you already have to be 21 to purchase a firearm. However, let me say that has not and does not keep those underage from getting and using them. And then thirdly, I believe they will try to increase the waiting time to purchase such weapons. That may go through. Now, all these may have good intentions, but 2 things I must say about them. Number 1, they will not stop mass shootings. And number 2, they will infringe on the right to bear arms as afforded by the Constitution. You see, there's another thought on how legislation will not stop mass shootings. That is the thought of what we have already today called gun-free zones. Let me ask you a question. Do you realize that gun-free zones, well, they have simply made many of these places a target? You see, in mass shootings, the things that stop them is the fact that someone is coming with a gun to stop them. Concealed weapon carriers across this country have stopped a number of mass shootings. Oh, you do not hear about that often. The media does not take time to carry these stories. But it is still very true. A good man with a gun is the best thing that will stop a bad man with a gun. You see, the problem with legislation is that you do not stop bad people with guns by taking away the rights of good people with guns. So I'd like to share with you in closing remarks today, I'd like to share with you something that I heard that I thought was very, very amazing. It was from a simple citizen. A simple citizen wasn't a well-known celebrity. He was a simple citizen from Greensboro, North Carolina. He was a black man who spoke up at a city council. I want you to listen to him. He's not an actor. He's not a celebrity. He's just a common man echoing the feelings of untold thousands of gun owners. Here, my friend, you will get a good look at what millions of gun owners think about the clamoring voices you've heard the past few weeks about gun control. Here are his words.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes. I didn't have time to...
you have to give us your name.
I'm sorry. My name is Mark Robinson. I live at 4015 Sassafras Court. That's right here in Greensboro. Lived in Greensboro all my life. I didn't have time to write a fancy speech. I didn't have time to, I didn't have the resource of an English teacher to sit down and write a speech with at school today and be, brought over here or practice or anything. What I really came down here for was this. I've heard a whole lot of people in here talking tonight about this group and that group, and domestic violence and blacks. these minorities and that minority. What I want to know is, when are you all going to start standing up for the majority? And here's who the majority is. I'm the majority. I'm a law-abiding citizen who's never shot anybody, never committed a serious crime, never committed a felony. I've never done anything like that. But it seems like every time we have one of these shootings, nobody wants to put the blame where it goes, which is at the shooter's feet. You want to put it at my feet. You want to turn around and restrict my right, constitutional right that's spelled out in black and white. You want to restrict my right to buy a firearm and protect myself from some of the very people you're talking about in here tonight. It's ridiculous. I don't think Rod Serling could come up with a better script. It does not make any sense. The law-abiding citizens of this community and many communities around this country, we're the first ones taxed and the last ones considered and the first ones punished when things like this happens, because our rights are the ones that are being taken away. That's the reason why I came down here today. Gun show or no gun show, NRA or no NRA. I'm here to stand up for the law-abiding citizens of this community, because I'm going to tell you that what's going to happen. You can take the guns away from us all you want to. You all write a law, I follow the law, I'll bring my guns down here, I'll turn them in. But here's what's going to happen. The Crips and the Bloods on the other side of town, they're not going to turn their guns in. They're going to hold on to them. And what's going to happen when you have to send the police down there to go take them? The police can barely enforce the law as it is. As what I see, we demonize the police, criminalize and vilify the police, and we make the criminals into victims. And we're talking about restricting guns? How are you going to do that? How are you going to do that when the police department's already hamstrung? You're not going to be able to go down here and take these guns from these criminals. So the criminals are going to hold on to their guns. They're still going to have them. They're still going to break in my house, and they're still going to shoot me with them. And guess who's going to be the one that suffers? It's going to be me. Well, I'm here to tell you tonight, it is not going to happen without a fight. And when I say fight, I don't mean shots fired. I don't mean fist thrown. I mean, I'm going to come down here to this city council and raise hell just like these loonies from the left do until you listen to the majority of the people in this city. And I am the majority. The majority of the people in this city are law-abiding, and they follow the law, and they want their constitutional right to be able to bear arms. They want to be able to go to the gun show and buy a hunting rifle or sport rifle. There are no military-grade weapons sold at the gun show. An AR-15 is not a military-grade weapon. Anybody that would go into combat with an AR-15 is a fool. It's a semi-automatic 22 rifle. You'd be killed in 15 minutes in combat with that thing. So we need to dispel all these myths, and we need to drop all this division that we got going on here. Because the bottom line is, when that Second Amendment was written, whether the framers liked it or not, they wrote it for everybody. And I am everybody. And the law-abiding citizens of this city are everybody. And we want our rights, and we want to keep our rights. And by God, we're going to keep them, come hell or high water.
Well, there you have it. There was a plain common man who spoke up, and I don't think that I can say it any better than the way he said it. We do have a right to protect ourselves, and so why would you punish the good, law-abiding people of this country? Think about that in the days ahead as you continue to hear about the debate for gun control. So this is Charlie Crimebuster. Till this time next time, reminding you, be safe, be alert, for the life you save, yes, it may be your very own.